Hey folks, Professor Diffley again, History 100. This is the third video for Chapter 2. So let's continue where we left off. We are now at the Tale of Three Cities, Sparta, Corinth, and Athens. Remember, this is an important part for your discussion board. We're going to look through these. These three cities, why do we pick these three? We know the most about them. They're the three most powerful. Some of the, argue, the most important cities of ancient Greece. And they really do cover the different variations pretty well of the major oligarchy, tyranny, democracy in the Greek city-states. And that's where we'll start here. Also be word to the wise, be able to talk about this for writing on the exams. I might ask you to discuss Sparta, Corinth, or Athens, or compare and contrast them, so be ready for that. All right, let's start. This will give you an idea of where Corinth is and Sparta here. Sparta, let's start with them, one of the most famous. The Spartans, known for their warfare. They were located on the Peloponnesian Peninsula in an area known as Laconia. They were actually known as the Macedonians in ancient Greece. They wouldn't have been called the Spartans, but that's what they were. One of the few Greek city-states that did not have direct access to the sea, and they only developed a navy much, much later on. They were main god Athena, chief deity. They also worship Apollo II as lawgiver. So main goddess Athena. Her focus here was on cunning warfare. That is their main gods. Key characteristics: militaristic society, most militaristic, unique in the Greek world. Everything, their society and religion was built around warfare. Why? The story is the Spartans had lost a war early on. They were actually, before they became militaristic, known for their artwork and pottery and things like that. They were defeated and invaded, and they decided as a group that they would never lose a war again, and so went the opposite way and got rid of all art and things like that and went full-on military. So everything, education system, literally every part of society was militaristic. The needs of the city-state were first above all else. So you serve Sparta, not yourself. That was the most important concept here. Government type, oligarchy. Oligarchy means rule by a few. It's usually a group of families or a limited class of society controls the government. In Sparta, it was only free adult males called the elite. The Spartanites, the elite, could participate in politics or considered a full citizen. To become an elite, you had to go through the whole military academy and survive, become one of the elite soldiers. Oligarchies, it's when you have people of a certain class running things. Here's an argument. Today, some would argue maybe the U.S. is an oligarchy, in the sense that even though we're a representative system, really the rich are the ones represented in Congress and in politics. Indeed, if you think about it, if you guys know this, what is the background of most politicians? Like, what did they study? Where did they go to school? Most are attorneys, lawyers. It's a different type of education. I went through one. You look at the world differently. You think about it differently. But that's the idea, is that a small group of people are making all the rules, rather than, something that represents everybody. How did their oligarchy work? Three components. They had kings, but this is what throws people off. It's an oligarchy. They're not kings in your traditional sense. Look at their kings as top generals, hereditary, prestigious leaders who served as religious and military heads. Always two. Why? So that no one person, but also, if they went to war, one general king would go off with war, and you'd have another one home, protecting them. You had the Gerousia, and know these Greek terms, the Council of Elders, 28 men over 60. Why? If you live that long, which many people did, you have a lot you might not be able to serve in the military anymore, but you have a lot to give. Side note on that, the idea of low, life expectancy rates. People usually see, people in the ancient world only lived till 30. It doesn't mean there were no old people. Of course there was. Those things are misleading, statistics like that. What drives down the numbers are infant mortality. Lots of babies died in their first few months or before a year. As you know, if you add zeros into any average, it's going to drive it way down. So, of course, there were old people, and 60s, and since we have 65 as the elderly today, but the Jerusalem Council of Elders would be part of it. The F4s, these are overseers. These are 5 elected officials every year who made policy and enforced laws. So these would be like the everyday leaders. Why 5 of them? So you have people to cover everything, no power in one hand. But so you have the kings, the Jerusalem Council of Elders, and then the overseers. Combined, they made the Spartan government. Why is it an oligarchy? Well, all these people, the Jerusalem F4s and the king general, come from that alike, the top citizens of Sparta. What was their society and social classes? The alike, free adult males, we talked about. Perioci, these were free persons. So they were not full citizens. These were, the Spartans did this. When they conquered you, if you fought them, they enslaved you. If you didn't fight and you surrendered, they made you next to a free person, not a citizen. You couldn't vote and that sort of thing. But these were the people who mostly did the crafts, right? You have a military, you're going to need armor, you're going to need weapons, you're going to need things like that. They're going to be free people. They could also serve, we'll see this later at the famous, battle of the 300 of the Spartans at Thermopylae. The stories and the movies will tell you there was only 300 people. Well, there were only 300 alike, 300 elite Spartans. There were hundreds of Peroci who were everyday foot soldiers, infantrymen, not the elite there. But that's the Peroci. And then the rest of everybody were the Helots. This is a special Greek, a special slave class in Sparta. They were owned by the state and by people. These were who resisted Sparta and as punishment, a perpetual slave class owned by a state. Brutal treatment of them. Why? Well, when the majority of your population is slave, you have to keep them in line. The best way is fear. That's how they use terroristic violence to control the population. Back to this. Terroristic violence. Like, for example, every year they would say, the Greeks thought murder was wrong. But every year in Sparta, they would say the laws don't apply. And that one day, people would go around and you could kill any helot you wanted. They would usually purge. So this is like a purge. They would purge any of the leaders, anybody of the slaves that were, fighting back, that sort of thing. Women in Sparta had greater rights than most. They were educated. They were given a physical education. Why? Well, the men are off at war, so they're going to have to run the businesses and own property. Why physical training? One, to be able to defend themselves against the Helots, who are always attempting to rebel. And also the Spartans believed, strong parents make strong babies. So we need strong, physically fit women in order to produce healthy, strong babies, is what the Spartans saw. Education began at 7 for boys. They went to Agoge. They were communal education. Why? Take you away from your family because you work for Sparta now, right? They start training with weapons, live weapons at a very young age. That's part of it. And, many of the children will die. Well, think about it. Give swords to 8-year-olds or 10-year-olds. They're going to kill each other. And that was part of what the Greeks wanted, the Spartans wanted. Why? Weed out the weak. If you're going to die that young, you're not going to be much of a warrior is the way they look. They also engage in what we would call pedophilia today. Homosexual relationship, lover and beloved. Part of it was that an older male would choose a teenage soldier as his special favorite. It was usually and almost always sexual. This was viewed as a political education and also created a bond amongst soldiers, right? So you would fight more for the loved one. When the young teenage soldier became older, he would then take an adolescent teenager as his lover there. Weird, different than our way of life today, but that's nonetheless the way it worked. So life in Ego, again, tough and harsh. They were encouraged to steal. They weren't given enough food. You're encouraged to steal but not get caught. So this practice is stealth, things you're going to need for war. If you're off at war, you're not always going to have all the food, so you're going to need to scramble and get it for yourself. Very, very tough, no coddling, to say the least. Some more on that. Let's talk about the Corinthians. Corinth, the richest, arguably, of the Greek city-states. It controlled the isthmus. And so what's an isthmus? You go back here. The isthmus is here. Isthmus is a body of water connected on surrounded by two sides by water. Peloponnesia connected to the Corinth Isthmus, connected the Peloponnese with the rest of Greece, and Athens would be over here. So Corinth is rich because it controls all the sea trade, all the land trade. Also, what they built was this system where you could pull up your boat here, they would unload it, carry your boat and your goods up to the Gulf of Corinth. So they're making money hand over fist everywhere. Controlled access there. Their main god is Apollo, the sun god. Key characteristics: wealthiest, known for exporting fine pottery, wine, even leather. You can see there, they were tyrants. They're most famous for having tyrannies on there. They were a naval power and a tyranny. What does a tyranny mean back then? An interesting thing about a tyrant. Tyrant doesn't mean what it means to say a bad person. A tyrant was usually someone who rose up against the oligarchy and is put into power. Tyrants back then didn't just rule however they wanted. What they would do is they would usually try to get the people on their side. So they would keep any rights, voting rights. They would have big building projects to give people jobs and try to give back. So tyrant is more what we know today. Different term. Think, a brutal dictator like Joseph Stalin or Kim Jong-un in North Korea. That's not what the Greeks meant. But here's some more look at the beautiful Corinthian pottery. So tyranny, again, a single elite family was able to suppress and use force to compete against others. A family leader would be the tyrant. They built their power against elite rivals, offer privileges to the disenfranchised and the poor. Always economic reforms, public employment, public works, and lower taxes. They didn't get rid of those bodies, the representative bodies, but tried to strengthen them or control them. Tyrannies don't always work. They're usually only last a generation or two. Why? What usually happens is the first tyrant is good. His son or grandson takes over and turns out to be a bad ruler. These are the most famous Corinthian tyrants that you can see here. And these are the stories behind them. Athens, let's talk about them real quick. Athens, the location, southeast corner of Greece in Attica. They controlled the Port of Praeus, which connected Athens. There was a giant, miles-long wall, 7-mile-long corridor that connected the city to the ocean. So this way, you could never surround Athens. They could always get to the sea. Main god, Athena. Key characteristics: most democratic, naval and military and commercial power. Lots of philosophy, art, education, eventually control a major empire. Beautiful city, beautiful arts, and attracting great philosophers. And, of course, a democracy. These are Athenian coins. And you could view through here democracy and the steps. But what is a true democracy? A democracy, and you've probably been told you live in a democracy. Not true. You live in a republic, a representative system. In a true democracy, every citizen votes on every single issue in government. That would be impossible to do in the United States. I mean, all of us would have to stop. Every time the government wanted to do something, we would all have to vote. Instead, we pick someone to go represent us. So we are a republic. Think about it. You pledge allegiance to the republic for which it stands. Not the democracy, but to the republic. Democracies are only possible in small areas. Even though Athens is going to have populations of tens of thousands, only a small portion of its citizens, of people, could actually vote. This will give you go through this on how they got there. This is pretty straightforward. You could read it here, and it's in the book, and you can go through this, how they got there. Sloane, very important, one of the fathers of Greek democracy in Athens, you can read all this. It's discussed in the books and all that there. So that is Athens. There's also new ways of thought, philosophies here. The Ionian philosophers, they came from here. They came up with a lot of the ideas of astronomy, mathematics, and myth. They were influenced by Mesopotamia. They create prose writing, philosophy, and you can see all of that there. And so that is it for Chapter 2. As always, you have questions, let me know. The materials are there. Make sure you watch the videos in Chapter 2. And you can see I'm posting the videos here, so you'll see them in a second. read the textbook, look at the slides and the notes, take a look at the videos and all that. If you have questions, as always, just let me know. That's what I'm here for. All right, good luck, folks. There'll be a quiz at the end of this just focusing on Chapter 2. All right, thanks.